How you doing, guys? Welcome back to our channel. So we're going to be going through a couple of guys I didn't mention that weren't in either the alternates or the people squad, and we're going to go through what you should do with them, but then go through a bunch of options for all the different positions here. So it should be a pretty big video, this one, and I hope you get a lot out of it. But just if it's too long for you and you're looking for certain things, just scroll through and you'll find out sort of the guys I'm talking about in different positions. So Cam Munster is out for a few weeks. So very much similar to what you're looking at with Feeder, except Munster actually has an injury. So he should be out for 2 weeks, come back for round 12, then out for 13. And then there's a good chance he might get rested in 14, for example. So he might be missing 4 out of the next 5 weeks. So for Munster, again, similar boat to for Feeder, just there's a lot of money sitting there for someone that plays Origin, who's going to miss 4 out of the next 9 games, approximately. So he's someone that I think you can look at trading out. Obviously, 3.59% of people have already done so this early in the week. So, I can understand if you're trading him out. Completely not against it unless you have 18 trades and you've max traded. I wouldn't be trading out Munster if you've done that. The other guys on this list, Hampton, I think, is a definite trade out. He's going to be out all the way until the round 13 bye as well. So another 4 weeks for Hampton, unfortunately, at least. Actually, sorry, he could be out for... He could be out for 3 months actually. Sorry, forget that. Brandon Smith, I think, is definitely a hold. He's only out for the 1 week and he'll be playing in round 13. Won't be playing Origin, so I think you've got to hold him, especially with how crazy this week's been. And Zach Seeney's the other one. I think he's too cheap to trade out of your side with all the issues that we have currently. So for everyone to trade him in last week and then trade him out is a very stupid move. Obviously, he's been dropped, but he's just too cheap to do anything about, I think. Kurt Capewell's only out for 1 week, so I'd be wary of Kurt in trading him out. Tessie, I think you can move him on. That's fine. Cam Murray, Momorowski, I think Mom should be probably a little bit higher in the percentage of trade outs. Rapana, hit and miss is if you can trade him out or not. So we spoke about a bunch of those guys. But the other one to talk about was Harry Grant. And with him being out for, it looks like, a couple of weeks as well, he's going to be in a similar boat to Munster. Obviously, a lot less people have brought Grant in so far. But 678, I think a lot of people are going to be trying to target him around 14 or 15. So keep that in mind. If you have him currently, it's a bit of a pain in the ass, and it might be, he's just so cheap. 678 is great. When you've got that sitting on your bench rather than what Munster's going to be, 710, only a slight difference. But who do you think is going to get rested after Origin? Both these guys are going to have really important roles to play in Origin, so they both might be getting rested in those times because the Storm have enough players to cover. So think about that when you're looking at trading out some of these guys. But let's go through a couple of examples. If you're looking to trade out of a Feeder or a Munster or these types of guys and you have plenty of available cash, then these are the types of guys I'd be looking at. In terms of Reid Barnett, I'd be waiting on him because there's a chance he doesn't make it through the concussion protocols. I think you can wait a couple of weeks. His price should drop down a little bit further, so I wouldn't be rushing to get him in this week. Obviously, a lot of only Simkin adds in a hooker that's been that's not playing this week, but most people have Brayley and a Mcculloch or a Mann combo or something like that. So hooker's not a priority this week, I don't think. I think a lot of the other positions are, or filling your interchange bench. So Papa, as I said last week, I think he's scored amazingly well for the type of game that he had, but he's priced in the mid-60s already, right? He's pretty much almost priced at what he's averaging right now at 68. So I'd be wary about picking him up just at his real peak price. I still think he's going to average closer to 58.60. So I think he's got a little bit of a drop in his price to be had. You can also see how they play him, Madison, Brown, Lane, if he's going to get some lesser minutes, if he has to come into the middle or not. So just keep an eye out on that. I don't think he's a big priority this week, as we have a lot of issues in the squad right now. Payne Haas is an awesome pickup if you're playing head-to-head. I'd be holding off if you're not, and you're going for overall points. Jerome Hughes is scoring incredibly well. That's 4 games in a row of crazy scoring, right? We'll pop him up on the screen. Jerome Hughes there at 778, but just be wary of the price that he's got himself to. Obviously, what have we got? 85, 78, 73, and 78. When you look at how he started the year, he's played absolutely incredible the last bunch of weeks. Will he be able to keep that up? Obviously, Munster's out and Riley Jacks is in, so you'd imagine that I don't think his role changes too much. He's already the majority kicker, making plenty of meters, obviously not kicking goals or anything like that, but he has just been doing everything perfectly, and will he be able to keep that up going forward? That's going to be the question. I think he's probably a little bit overpriced at this point at 778 because you're looking at, he's averaged pretty much exactly what he's priced at. So I don't think he averages 60 over the year. I think he's a 55, 53 kind of player. That's just my opinion on Hughes there. You can pick him up, but yeah, there's a few guys that are a little bit cheaper that might average a similar amount across the year is my question and my thoughts. Frizzell, I'd be holding off as well. Plays Origin, scoring really well, but there's a couple other guys like Madison and that you could pick up in the edge, which we'll talk about. Ponga as well, I'd be holding off bringing him in. Same reasons, Origin. DCE, same deal. To'o, if we think he's not going to make Origin, he's a really good option for a Momirovski. If you'd like to bring in a wing fullback, if you have enough cover in the centres, then To'o's a great option there. Going to be averaging somewhere in the mid-50s, which is what he's priced at, which is good. Cookie, again, I wouldn't be bringing him in right now. A lot of people are still looking to trade him out, but you've got to hold him. TPJ, I had a question asked about what happens when Glenn comes back. Well, Ricky got dropped, remember, to the bench when they decided to play TPJ in the second row role. So when Glenn comes back, I imagine Ricky goes back to the bench. TPJ's been playing pretty well. Has been playing pretty well in the second row, so I think he probably keeps his spot. At 729k, he's a pretty solid option that should be averaging somewhere in the 50s. I don't think he changes much from this price going forward, just because he's that up and down type of player. But he's playing round 13. Should be only a slight chance of playing Origin. So he's a solid option there at 729k. And you see you get him at 120k discount to someone like Papa. And he might score a tiny bit more, but I don't think he scores too much more. Tamalolo, he obviously doesn't play round 13. So that's my thoughts around him. Is a lot of people are like, oh, wait a week and see what his minutes are like. Yeah, I understand that. But I feel like if you're getting him in, you've got to get him in now. Now that his price has stabilized, you get him in now unless you get him in round 14. I'd be looking to pick him up after the first bye, and then he has a clean slate for the rest of the year where he doesn't miss any more games. So, yeah, obviously the few things to think about. He's coming off a couple of broken hands, so do you want to take that risk? Will he play 70 minutes again? Not exactly sure. So keep that in mind. Gutho, good chance of playing Origin, so I'd be worried until round 13 if he's continuing to play well and doesn't make Origin. And it looks like he's out of favour in that and won't play in future Origin games, then I think he's a solid option, but probably a few better in that wing fullback like a To'o and those types of guys. All right, Mcculloch comes in as a solid option if you're looking for a replacement for Simpkin. If you only have a Brayley and no hooker cover, then maybe Mcculloch and having that dual hooker guns is a solid one there. He's still going to average around that 60. Should get back to his 80 minutes. Obviously, they were winning on the weekend, so they didn't need to play him that 80 minutes when the rest of the team can cover that for the 10 minutes or whatever it was. As I spoke about Munster, I think Madison's a really, really strong buy this week. I imagine a lot of people will be getting him and trading for feeder for him or Munster or whatever it is. It's a straight swap for Munster in terms of price, which is great. You save 18k there. Good option along with Lucy Leilua. I think they're both at the same price point. I'd expect Madison to average slightly better, but obviously you have the risk of him if he gets concussed again, he's going to be out for a bunch of weeks. So that's the scary thing for him. Hopefully it doesn't happen for his sake and his health, but also our fantasy team. So that's probably the only difference with Leilua. Is probably averages a little bit less in across the season, but he has less chance of being out for an extended period of time apart from any normal injury. Appy, I think you can wait a couple of weeks. Ben Hunt, there's a chance he plays number 14 in Origin, so keep an eye out on that one there. Who else we got in this section? Barnett, I'd be holding / not bringing him in. I'd be worried about that a little bit with the minutes that he got on the weekend. Fisher Harris, I think we'll get back into a very, very, very quality scorer. Had limited minutes on the weekend, but just for the fact that he's played big minutes every week, I think there's just an anomaly, and he had enough impact in that time he was on the field. I think 36 minutes for 68 points. So he's also a good option at that cheaper price point. I think he can average somewhere in the low to mid 50s, like he is right now anyway. So you're getting him at a slight discount to that, as he should be priced about 700k, but someone only is going to miss one game over the Origin period, which is good. Adam Dewey gets moved to the centres, so I think if you've got him in your team like I do, he's a hold, but I wouldn't be bringing him in this week. I'd be holding off. Just wouldn't want to cop a 30 odd after bringing him in this week. If he moves back to the halves, I think he's a good buy. Moving along, Luke Thompson, Very, very good score on the weekend. Priced at 56, so he's underpriced based on that. He just doesn't play 13, which is a bit of a worry for overall. But head-to-head, guys, I think he's a nice pod to bring in to score you in that mid-50s. If he's going to get big minutes every week like he has been, like he's shown so far, he's got a really good motor and a good PPM. I think he's an awesome option for your squad. Ryan Sutton, I think, is a trade out with that hyperextended elbow. It's a hard one. He obviously misses 13 as well, so he misses a couple of the next bunch of weeks. But if he comes back strong, I think that price, you might better hold off a week or two of him playing, and that price drop will be nice around that 600k mark, and you can pick him up then as someone who is around a 50-odd point scorer. So think about that, maybe following around 13, I think, with him. A lot of people talking about Maguire, and I think he's a decent option. Just I think there's better. I think Fisher Harris is going to be better than him at 20k more. It's Maguire. It's funny, he played for the Cowboys, and I'm kind of like, I don't really like him. Maybe it's just because he's a Queenslander. But yeah, will he get picked in Origin? There's a chance as well. So think about that. Then you can try and wait until round 13 with him. Obviously, you might miss a couple of price rises because he's scoring well, but there's something to think about there. All right, Foggs is someone I have in my team at 640k. He's obviously a bit more expensive than he was, but a bunch of 60s in a row is really strong. And you look at him playing with Tanner Boyd, and he takes the majority of the kick meters, obviously. 640k. What was the last week one? 456. So really good results for him. But that's 3 60s in a row: 65, 62, 69 to go along with 3 other 60s in the year and a couple of low ones. So really happy. I think he's going to average more than 51 for the season. And you look at him as a big pod in the top 1,000, 6.8%, top 100, 4% of teams own him. So only 4 teams in that top 100. So he's a good pod, and will at a nice price, and will score well for you throughout the next bunch of weeks. But for the rest of the year, he's one of those cheaper halves you can get, which is good. Roger, I'd be holding off until round 14. I think he's a really good buy in that one. If you have him, hold steady. Kurt Mann is someone I spoke about heavily last week, and I still think is an amazing option. Didn't do a lot last week and still got 48. So if he starts to actually do a little bit in this week's game against the Tigers, who he should do well against and run the ball and get a lot of tackle breaks and tries and whatever else. So I think he's someone that I can expect around a 60-point score this week at 625k in the half position is perfect. Luke Brooks should do a little bit more this week, I'd imagine, with Mbai moving into the 6 role, with Brooks at 7 there. So a few more kick meters, bits and pieces out there, I think is a good result for Brooks. And if you own him, keep hold of him. Same with Twile, just keep holding him. 619k now. It'd probably be silly to trade him out when he's going to be playing around 13 and averaging around 50. So hold on steady with him. There's obviously a lot more issues at this current time with all of our squads and how many players are out. If you've got Hudson Young, I'd be holding steady with him, which is good with him moving back into the lock role with Tarpanay out. So it'd be interesting to see how he goes in the middle as to how he goes on the edge. We can see that he's obviously played a little bit through the middle in the past, but he does seem to score a little bit better on the edge, just with him getting chances of picking up some tries, for example. He's got 40 minutes for 30 or 46 minutes for 58. So him being a workhorse is helpful for him. You can see some games in the prop position. He has a very, very solid PPM. So I think either way, he scores pretty well. Come off the interchange, he did well as well last year. So I don't see him moving to the middle as being an issue at all. And if you own him, 4% of teams still do. So I think you've got to hold steady. And when none of the top 100 and one person in the top 1,000 has him, 2 people, sorry. I think he's a good one to keep hold of in your squad. Christian Welch, I've spoken about in the team list video. He gets a pretty decent bench this week, and I'd imagine for him that means a few extra minutes after a game last week with lower minutes. They do come up against St George, who will be okay as a team. I'd imagine that even with Smithy and Grant out, the Storm team should still win comfortably. But I think it means a closer game and less points for Storm, which means some more work through the middle for Welch and maybe some bigger minutes. So I think he's worth holding this week with all the issues that we've got. Obviously, before we found him team list, and I think he was a possible chance of an upgrade because I'll be upgrading him before round 13. So think about that there. Smithy's a hold. Trebojevic, if you're playing head-to-head, I think he's solid at a cheap price and improving his scores each week. But that's about it. Yeah, to be going any lower. All right, let's go down to 550, and then we'll do a video from 550 down. Who else we got? Clemmer, 591. He's an okay buy. He got decent minutes on the weekend and still didn't score incredibly. He's very similar to that of Barnett there, 591k. I think we haven't really seen the signs yet of him scoring amazingly well. Obviously, the 2 weeks in a row. Actually, sorry, he did end up with 52 last week for 51 minutes. So much better score and 205 run meters is good. I think you've got him at pretty much his floor in terms of his price. So he's a solid option with basically no ownership in the top 5,000. So think about him if you're looking to pick up someone in a strong position coming into the buy period. Dylan Edwards again at that cheaper price is a good option along with someone like Brimson, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Nathan Brown's back. I'll be holding him. Carrigan's a sell. What else we got around here? Rapana, we spoke about a little bit in the last video. You can do what you like with him, but should be out for the next 4 weeks, you'd imagine. And Tauke Aho is an interesting one. Here we go. Oh, we got Brimson too. Tauke Aho at 551. Coming off the bench was a little bit of an issue for him. I just think with all the issues, you've got to hold him at least until round 13 and make that decision from there. He's not going to lose you too much more cash at 551, but it could pump out a couple of 50s or 60s with Lindsay Collins out, for example. So keep an eye on him. Gags as a hold. Brimson, I think, is a decent trade-in target. He's scoring much better over the last bunch of weeks. He's up against Penrith this week, so maybe you can hold off 1 week with him and pick him up closer to 13. So we'll leave it at that for this video, guys, all the way down to 550k. Hope you got a lot out of that and you found some guys that you could possibly bring in. And then we can use this video in conjunction with my next one where I talk about everyone from 550 down with a bunch of those nice mid-rangers in the centers, for example. We'll talk about Matt Burton, these types of guys, but then also talk about the cash cows and what to do with them over the next few weeks and leading up into that round 13 buy. So I hope you enjoyed that video, guys. Hope it provided a lot of value, and we'll catch you in the next one where we talk about those guys there. Enjoy out. See you guys.